Good morning. My name is Phil Payne. I'm the Dean of the College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources, and I have with me Robert Little of Nevada Department of Agriculture, and also Dave Shintani, who's Associate Professor of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology and the Associate Dean in the college. And Dave has great familiarity, and in fact works with GMOs and can tell you about many specific aspects, including the current and especially potential uses. And I have submitted a few slides to explain in plain language what GMOs are and the traits that have been transferred to agriculturally important crops. As Dean of a college dedicated to addressing issues of sustainable food production through science in the world, and as somebody who's lived overseas in many countries that are not food secure, such as Syria, Egypt, and many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, I'd like to encourage the City Council to consider the following facts. There is no science-based reason to single out GMO foods and feeds for mandatory labeling. Countless studies, and I mean more than 3,000, and official views and statements by bona fide scientific organizations, and I mean more than 240, have reinforced this. Editorials by mainstream press such as USA Today and Slate have commented on the use of and I quote Slate, frauds, lies, and errors or fear-mongering by certain consumer groups. The scientific groups and scientists are not shills of Monsanto. They include American Association for the Advancement of Science, the largest scientific society in the world. They include Nature, which is arguably the most prestigious publication, and the National Academy of Sciences, which is another most prestigious groups of scientists. And they even include the Vatican. And I have 3 of those publications with me. They're just 1 pages. Mandatory labeling abandons the traditional U.S. practice of providing for consumer food preferences through voluntary product differentiation and labeling. Market-driven voluntary labeling measures are currently providing consumers with non-GE choices. So those voluntary labels are already emerging in the marketplace. The consumer has to be aware because you see strange labels such as gluten-free meat, for example, that makes no sense whatsoever. So the consumer does have to be informed. An important aspect is that study after study has shown that mandatory labeling will increase food costs. The actual amount is debatable, and that's a matter of many studies because it depends on how pervasive or invasive those labeling requirements are. But just one reason to illustrate is that since a great majority of soybeans and corn produced is now from strains that are modified by genetic methods, keeping track of which foods contain them will be expensive, requires separate storage methods, and independent tracking systems. That adds cost to food. I'd like the Council to bear that in mind, because today, as you should know, 1 in 4 children in Nevada lives in households that cannot reliably provide 3 nutritious meals a day. Adding $300 to $1,000 a year to their bills will affect that in a negative way. And children from food insecure households are more likely to suffer health, behavioral, and developmental problems. In 2013, about 16% of Nevadans lived in a food insecure household. 1 in 7 adults must regularly seek emergency food assistance. A third of Nevadans are eligible for SNAP, or the formerly known food stamp program, and Nevada ranks 10th in the nation with respect to the proportion of seniors who are food insecure. I would also, without going into specific details, encourage you to glance at the FDA's defect levels handbooks. I won't go into specifics because there may be squeamish people here, but there are plenty of things that are legally allowed in your food, such as hair and dirt, that are not required to be labeled. One of the goals of my college, and indeed of the university, is to improve Northern Nevada's economy through knowledge, science, and technology. I submit that GMO labeling moves us in the opposite direction, and it will drive away or discourage those companies involved in biotechnology. I'd like to, finally, in closing, invite council members to be hosted at the college, and I can show you some of the real opportunities and things that are taking place using biochemistry, molecular biology, and biotechnology. I'll turn it over to Robert. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Little, and I'm with the Nevada Department of Agriculture. Agriculture in Nevada is very diverse, and we are here today to represent all flavors of the industry. Our mission is to promote agricultural business climate that is fair and equitable. When we talk about genetically engineered foods and their labeling, a patchwork labeling system across city, county, or state jurisdiction would create an unfair business climate. Nevada's food and agricultural sector is responsible for a $2.7 billion economic contribution to our state, and agriculture and manufacturing exports out of the state are increasing from year to year. In fact, the industry was responsible for more than $300 million in exports last year, all of which stands to be disrupted by patchwork labeling requirements. As you already heard, genetically engineered foods are considered safe by the scientific community. The NDA supports a nationally standardized voluntary labeling system that encourages consumer choice. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Dr. Payne and myself would be happy to entertain any questions that you have at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Buckus.
What is the status? Because we weren't asked by the advocates of GMO labeling to adopt a patchwork system that would apply within the city of Reno. That wasn't something we were considering. It was thrusting our support behind federal level initiatives, as part of our federal platform, because we have a federal platform that we support each year. State of Nevada probably does also. For for the labeling. So a mandatory right to know labeling law that would be national in scope. A city, I think we're always going to reserve our right to, exercise our direct communication with other levels of government. And so it's not a preemption issue. It wasn't exercising that. It was, so that's where we were thinking. It wasn't, I don't know if you're confused, but it was not that we would promote a labeling within the city of Reno retail environment. But having said that, what is the status of the federal efforts? Because I had heard that there was some, it had been marked up against Congress. Do you know where that was at? It was part of maybe the Ag Bill or something? I don't know.
There was an effort to pass a national law to prevent states from enacting mandatory requirement, and that was in response to what was happening in November. That effort did not succeed, but there's still not a successful national law requiring labeling. But the fact remains that studies have shown that will increase prices.
Yeah, just from our perspective, generally, local governments, doesn't matter the issue. We don't want to be preempted. And in general, and I think states probably don't want to be preempted, so I'm happy to see that didn't pass at the federal level. Maybe I don't know, but so the state of Nevada opposed or supported the preemption. Then, I guess you supported that bill. Okay, just good to know. So right now, states are free to do labeling as they require labeling as they want, and the state of Nevada would not support that.
No, it's not that the state would not support labeling. We would support a standardized labeling instead of a patchwork labeling.
A voluntary labeling. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I shop at the food co-op here in Reno. It's a retail outlet, and they only carry. They went through a labeling process. They only they wanted labeling, so that if you're not labeled, we're not going to have you in. And then I think so you would like that voluntary effort.
Correct,
okay,
yes.
Thanks.
And those efforts are already taking place through industry.
All right. Madam Secretary, unless there are any questions from council, Madam Secretary, public comment.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our first public comment to speak today on this item is Al Trace.